Takara Akiyuki is your average troubled kid with zero riz until one day he gets turned into an ugly alien by a mysterious girl. But before any of this, Akiyuki lives with his mother while his father lives separately, so every morning he delivers his father's breakfast to his clinic. However, today he is already late for school, so he decides to let his father die with hunger and heads out on his bicycle. Unexpectedly, his bicycle chain breaks when suddenly his mom approaches him and tells him to deliver his father's food before going to school. Akiyuki visits his father's clinic, and his father starts lecturing him as usual, so he leaves to catch the bus and makes it in time. At the bus stop, he notices a white-haired girl and starts fantasizing creepy things. The security staff checks everyone's arm badges and Akiyuki enters the bus while unknowingly dropping his badge. So the white-haired girl picks it up and gets on the after him. The bus is echoing with the broadcast updates on the war going on. Akiyuki spots a ton of scout boats and knows things are about to get wild. When they reach school, the white-haired girl sets off a bomb in her hand. A cool golden sphere pops out and shoots out green beams all over the place. One of the beams hit Akiyuki's left arm and starts spreading before vanishing. As he comes back to his senses, he spots the white-haired girl still on the bus. Akiyuki rushes to her side when suddenly he feels unbearable sting in his arm, and a blue crystal pops up on it before getting back into his arm. Ignoring his own pain, he goes to check on the girl, who is barely conscious. In her final breaths, she shares her name and whispers a mysterious phrase. The soldiers quickly arrive at the scene only to find a strange creature in front of them, so they start firing it without thinking. Haru, who is also following behind because she has strong feelings for Akiyuki, hears Akiyuki's voice coming from inside the alien. Driven by the power of love, Haru attacks the armed soldiers to save Akiyuki when some airships appear in the sky and start releasing unfamiliar objects. The object starts throwing steam out of it and a monster comes out from it as well that can easily handle attacks from tanks and cannons fire. The monster heals itself in an instant and fires lasers that split the school in half. After this, the monster takes a shot at Akiyuki with its laser but totally whiffs it. Getting frustrated, the monster decides to get up close and personal, but Akiyuki, the little powerhouse, proves to be a tough nut to crack. The monster tries to shake him off, but Akiyuki hangs on like a champ. After a bit of a scuffle, the monster manages to push Akiyuki in front of a building. However, Akiyuki is mad now and his eyes are like blazing infernos. He charges at the monster, ready to deliver a knockout blow to its head when Haru shows up out of nowhere and tells Akiyuki to escape from there. At that moment, a stone hits the water pipe and causes Haru to fall. In the nick of time, Akiyuki catches Haru, empowered by his love for her. Afterward, he starts using the monster as his punching bag and the monster seems to be standing no way against him. Just when it looks like Akiyuki is going to end the monster's story, this girl comes out of nowhere and stabs him in the hand with a sword. She reveals that if Akiyuki keeps fighting like this, he'll eventually turn into a stone. She feels that Akiyuki has a strong will to live, so she does some crazy magic and boom, Akiyuki's back to normal. Nakayami touches Haru's head, prompting her to fall asleep, after which she takes Akiyuki back to her cruise ship, which is also known as the Xanbani. Turns out, Akiyuki can transform into exotic creatures called Xam'd because of this Haruko entity that entered his body. However, it is a sort of parasite that can take away its host's senses, and as a result the host turns into a statue. The girl who saves Akiyuki is Nakayami, who has the unique ability to hear what is going on in a Xam'd heart, so when she heard Akiyuki's will to live she decided to save him from turning into a stone. Nakayami takes Akiyuki back to their postal airship Xanbani, where the ship's captain, who goes by Ishu, watches her from a distance. Inside the ship, Nakayami treats Akiyuki with her exceptional skills. She then gives him special medicine to keep the Haruko within him under control. But Akiyuki is not buying it since it smells like shit. Akiyuki totally forgot about turning into Xam'd and thinks his arm is super strong now. He casually tells the captain to drop him off at the next port so he can head back to Sentin Island, his hometown. But when he rips off his bandage, the Haruko kicks in, and his arm blows up like a balloon, freaking everyone out. Suddenly, a strange airship shows up and drops these creepy stingray-like creatures called human form weapons to take down Akiyuki and the gang. Alright, before we go any further, let me break it down for you. We've got two teams here, North and South. The North has these crazy weapons called human form weapons, which are basically animals taken over by Haruko and controlled by people. This also clears that the school attacking monster was actually a human form weapon, and it's all about this Haruko business. At present, the stingray creature snatches up Akiyuki with its tail and swallows him whole. But Nakayami is not a fan of watching things from a distance, so she goes after it on her airship and somehow manages to rope the creature, after which she jumps on its back like a pro. She communicates with the Haruko inside the creature, and using its instructions, she opens its back only to awaken the poor Akiyuki and take him out of it. The duo instantly escapes, and seeing this, Ishu grabs a rocket launcher and launches it to obliterate the stingray creature. Afterward, Akiyuki feels responsible for all the mess and drinks the smelly medicine to keep the Haruko under control and make amends for his foolishness. Nakayami then tells him that if he wants to survive, he must keep himself controlled and make sure not to lose his self-awareness. She adds that Akiyuki will have to keep on thinking about the Haruko and master the way to suppress it. Meanwhile, the North's human form weapons attack gets everyone in the South panicking, so they have a big emergency meeting where they make Colonel Kekisu the head of Sentin Island, and his first order of business is to team up with a doctor named Kanba to investigate these crazy weapons. In the meantime, a monstrous creature is causing chaos in a southern city under remote control, prompting the southern military to send out an elite squad of ASP robots. These small combat machines, linked to human neural interfaces, are armed with weapons designed to take down human form weapons. Working together, the ASP squad immobilizes the giant monster, rendering it powerless. Once the control ring is removed, the uncontrolled human form weapons are instantly turned to stone. Somewhere near the city, these dudes with white hair known as Jibashiri are the followers of Ruikanism, who are ordered by their leader, Senova, to head out to the battlefield and grab some Haruko stuff. Back at the Xanbani, Nakayami wakes up Akiyuki and drags him to see Madame Tension for him to learn how to control the Xam'd, so they head down to the creepy bottom of the airship, where the room is all smoky and shrouded in mystery. As the smoke clears, the duo can see each other clearly and Akiyuki is surprised. Madame Tension quickly finds out that a Haruko is residing in Akiyuki's body. He inquires if the Haruko can be removed from him, but Tension explains that only the leader of Ruikanism, known as Senova, is capable to do it. However, since she is on the northern government's wanted list, she decided to hide. She clarifies that there's no way for him other than coexisting with the Haruko, so she advises him to pay attention to the voice of Haruko and use critical thinking skills so that it could be helpful for him in critical situations. Afterward, Tension decides Nakayami will be Akiyuki's trainer, but instead of getting some badass training, he's stuck doing grunt work like stamping letters, and it looks like Akiyuki is going to be stuck in a boring office. On the other hand, the southern government's warship docks at Sentin Island's port, getting ready to set up a guard team. Haru sees her classmate Shidara in the crowd, who's lost her whole family in an air raid, so she tries to comfort her. But Shidara's done with life now that her family's gone. Shidara heads to the edge of the military base and suddenly decides to be the guinea pig for the experiment. On the contrary, Dr. Kanba meets with Kekisu inside the military base to discuss the first volunteer who has come forward. This volunteer has been implanted with Haruko extracted from Xam'd. After the experiment, she is disposed of without any regard. The military then creates a scenario where Shidara attacks civilians, only to be confronted by small robots that collect data before terminating her without mercy. The next day, Captain Ishu spots something weird up ahead while sailing and tells Nakayami to check it out. She asks Akiyuki to go along with Nakayami, but Nakayami considers him to be a filthy burden and ditches him only to go solo on her airship. Just then Aku steps in and shoves Akiyuki out of the hatch like it's no big deal. Luckily, Akiyuki's muscular arms allow him to cling onto the airship as Nakayami questions his actions. Reluctantly, Akiyuki joins her, feeling powerless because he had no other choice. Upon arrival at their destination, they are met with a scene of devastation, with only the lifeless bodies of human form weapons scattered around. Among the wreckage, they stumble upon a partially petrified human form weapon. Nakayami rushes towards the human form weapon and leaps onto its back, determined to assist in its dismantling. However, the human form weapon swiftly throws her away using its tail, causing her body to begin petrifying. Witnessing this, Akiyuki promptly attempts to aid Nakayami, but the human form weapon's attack triggers the awakening of the Haruko within him. With his arm infused with the power of Xam'd, he effortlessly shatters the petrification and rescues Nakayami. Akiyuki viciously assaults the human form weapon, paying no heed to Nakayami's futile intervention. Nakayami, who can hear the creature's inner voices, had intended to help dismantle it peacefully, only to be shocked by Akiyuki's lethal actions. This is all because Akiyuki sees the human form weapons as tools of destruction. However, his views contrast sharply with Nakayami's compassionate understanding of the human form weapons. Following their mission, Akiyuki and Nakayami head back to the Xanbani, Curious about the human form weapons, Akiyuki questions Aku about their true nature. Aku reveals that these weapons were once living beings transformed into weapons by the North using Haruko injections. Aku adds that Nakayami's heart aches as she listens to the anguished cries of the human form weapons that compels her to brave danger in order to rescue them. Meanwhile, on Sentin Island, Haru and Akiyuki's mutual friend, Teruoka, talks to Haru about current war situations and tells her to prepare for the Southern Army exams, saying that he will treat her with chocolate rolls if she joins the military with him. Afterward, he leaves and Haru receives a letter from Akiyuki in which he asks her to pay a visit at his parents' place because they are helpless without him. He then promises that he will come back to the town no matter what. Haru informs his parents that Akiyuki is still alive, but the fact that he has become Xam'd cannot be changed. Akiyuki's father, Ryuzu, feels guilty because he used to be a surgeon for the northern government and saved many soldiers who were later used as experimental subjects. Ryuzu sees Akiyuki's transformation as a form of divine punishment. Upon finding out Akiyuki's well-being, Haru makes decision to join the Southern Army, thinking that it will allow her to leave Sentin Island, and she will be able to find Akiyuki as well. Their mutual friend Teruoka also enlists in the army with the aim of protecting his homeland. Upon successfully getting into the army, the initial challenge for them is to master the art of controlling small combat robots of Asp Squad. Teruoka excels effortlessly and becomes a pro in no time. Their progress catches the attention of Kakisu, especially when he discovers that two of them are close friends with Ryuzu's son. At the military's research center, a test subject is strangled by the military, but it unexpectedly awakens and comes out, leaving everyone surprised. The scientists standing in front of the monstrous Xam'd appear tiny and insignificant, like ants in comparison. Meanwhile, above them, a group of new recruits are going through their first training drill, completely unaware that it will soon escalate into a real battle. Below, the doctor remains unfazed by the looming danger, calmly observing as the Xam'd breaking free from the chains without any contingency plans in place. The chains snap, and the Xam'd, now standing tall, starts its ascent. The alarm blares, startling the secretary into action. Frantically, they try to contact someone for information, but the lab staff's negligence is evident. As the order to shut the gates comes too late, the Xam'd is already at the gates, leaving the secretary in the dark about what's happening below. Due to the delay in taking action, the first two gates are no match for Xam'd as she passes through them with ease. It's only when Kakisu steps in that the guard at the third gate springs into action, managing to close it just in time. Thankfully, Xam'd's pregnancy slows her down, allowing the third gate to be sealed successfully. The senior guards start to ease up on their watch, and even Kakisu, the seasoned warrior, lets out a breath of relief. Suddenly, steam starts to rise from Xam'd, and the baby's tiny hands crackle with electricity before clapping together to form a shimmering bubble. Instead of popping, the bubble shoots upward and bursts against the door, blowing it wide open. As the recruits watch in awe, the massive Xam'd suddenly appear in front of them. Contrary to their expectations, Xam'd doesn't launch an attack. Haru, attuned to Xam'd's emotions, senses its plea for survival. Disregarding this, the others deploy small robots to strike at Xam'd. In response, Xam'd conjures a shield to shield itself, which then transforms into a magnificent pair of wings. Before Xam'd can make its getaway, Teruoka seizes the moment and fires a shot at its calf, sending Xam'd tumbling to the ground. Teruoka then focuses on the wings, causing them to disappear and Xam'd to freeze in place. On the other hand, Akiyuki receives a letter from Haru, and they make plans to reunite at Tsumabara Pass. Akiyuki informs the captain of his plan, but the captain playfully insists on getting Nakayami's approval before proceeding. When Akiyuki approaches Nakayami, she seems to be concerned about the potential risk of losing control over Haruko, initially rejects Akiyuki's request. However, manages to persuade her, so she agrees to let him go on the condition that he brings Rappa along. Rappa is a lovable canine companion who rocks a collar complete with a tracker for added security. In the meantime, Haru and Teruoka are sent by the southern military to Tsumabara Pass in search of an Asp squad that went missing recently. In a new and unknown location, Akiyuki comes across a petrified human form weapon. Rappa's behavior becomes defensive as he senses a presence nearby. Seeking a shortcut to Tsumabara Pass, Akiyuki's encounter with an elderly farmer, but when he mentions Tsumabara Pass, the farmer's expressions change dramatically. Just then, the farmer changes into a human form weapon and charges at Akiyuki without a second thought. The human form weapon throws Rappa's onto a wall, resulting in falling off his tracker. Akiyuki found himself in a life or death situation as the monster pursued him without mercy. With no other choice, Akiyuki taps into Xam'd's power and deals a decisive blow by severing the monster's arm. However, the creature shows no signs of backing down. Just when all seems lost, an elderly man appears out of nowhere and manages to bring the monster under control. Afterward, Akiyuki introduces himself to the man who agrees to help him reach the Tsumabara Pass. With the signal from the damaged tracker fading, Nakayami's worry grows as she decides to embark on an airship journey to find Akiyuki. Upon reaching the location where the tracker ceased transmitting, she encounters the petrified human form weapon and is compelled to go to the Tsumabara Pass all by herself. Tsumabara Pass was once known as the world's largest mine and it was always crowded. However, when the northern government ordered its army to drop human form weapons here, everything changed drastically. Teruoka and Haru enter the mine only to find an asp robot there, but upon closer inspection, they learn that the pilot is missing. In a sudden turn of events, a human form weapon appears out of nowhere, startling Haru and Teruoka. Haru realizes that she can hear the feelings of the human form weapon and decides not to hurt the monster, but Teruoka acts swiftly, shooting at the creature and urging Haru to flee. Haru rushes towards the exit and gets out of the mine, but suddenly, she trips and falls on the ground while trembling like a chicken. Surprisingly, she hears a familiar voice that turns out to be Akiyuki's. Meanwhile, a strange man is watching everything from down the bridge when suddenly the human form weapon attacks Haru from behind. But Akiyuki jumps and saves her on time. Just then, Teruoka comes there following the human form weapon and Jess shocked to see Akiyuki's arm only to realize that he is the same Xam'd he saw when their school got destroyed. Akiyuki feels relaxed seeing his old friend, but unexpectedly, Teruoka seems to be too serious about his job in the military. He starts blaming Akiyuki for everything that happened and says that he is not a human anymore before pointing his gun at him. Out of the blue, this mysterious guy shoots a laser at Teruoka, knocking him out cold. He then tells Haru to give Akiyuki the boot. As Akiyuki walks away, the mystery man transforms back to his regular self and drops some wisdom on Teruoka before disappearing. By the time Nakayami shows up, Akiyuki's on the ground, unable to even stand. The crew at Xanbani waits for what seems like an eternity, but as soon as Nakayami returns, they waste no time in setting sail. Just when they are about to take off, a bike rushes towards them only to enter the Xanbani at full speed, and the rider happens to be the man from earlier who saved Akiyuki from Teruoka. We learn that this person's name is Raio and he is an old friend of everyone at Xanbani. When Raio finally shows up, the whole crew goes nuts with excitement. It's been 2 freaking years since they've seen him, and they're all stoked to have him back. He's like the crew's favorite uncle or something, bringing gifts and stealing the show from the poor boy Akiyuki. Captain Issue tells Raio to take a bath since he smells like rotten undies, but after a shower and some razor, Raio transforms into the most handsome dude on the Xanbani. When it's time for food, Akiyuki tries to start eating, but Raio tells him to give food to others, so after delivering everyone's food to their rooms, Akiyuki takes his food and goes to Om. Om asks him why he is not eating with others, so Akiyuki tells him that he thinks he is not fitting in with them. Om understands his situation and reveals that 5 years ago, Raio was also turned into Xam'd just like him. However, Nakayami rescued him and saved him from being petrified. After that, Raio left the Xanbani to train himself, and now he has full control over the Xam'd's powers. Hearing this, Akiyuki calms down and starts behaving normally. Later, Raio surprises everyone by revealing his collection of stunning photos. As they admire the images, Raio suggests capturing a group photo to commemorate their adventure. In the midst of the excitement, Raio shows Akiyuki a picture of the legendary Diamond Tower, the sacred site where the Northern Tyrant Emperor Harukin was reborn and the final destination of Captain Issue's epic journey. In the meantime, amidst the ongoing battle between the North and the South, the North launches a series of attacks using human form weapons. Issue formulates a daring plan to target Diamond Tower during a vulnerable period by coordinating a raid with the Resistance. After they take a group photo, they are met with unforeseen challenges that threaten to impede their progress. The radar picks up a ship from the North, and Raio immediately springs into action. He wakes up Akiyuki and informs him that they have detected human form weapons on board. Akiyuki is taken by surprise but follows Raio to the top of the ship for live combat training. Raio hands over the responsibility of handling the enemy unit to Akiyuki, emphasizing the importance of self-protection. This is Akiyuki's first taste of combat as Xam'd. As the deployment ship's human form weapon streaks towards Xanbani, Raio imparts a final piece of wisdom to Akiyuki. The Haruko within him is a double-edged sword, capable of great feats or great destruction. With a solemn nod, Raio bids Akiyuki farewell, leaving him to face the impending battle on his own. Akiyuki contemplates Raio's advice and then focuses his attention on the human form weapon drawing near. With a surge of determination, he taps into Xam'd's abilities. As the creature advances, Akiyuki prepares to face it head-on, but Nakayami intervenes from her airship, firing a shot that narrowly misses. Undeterred, Akiyuki seizes the moment to leap onto the approaching threat. Nakayami tosses him a seed, a signal for him to plant it within the monster to neutralize its power. Akiyuki slams the seed into the creature, causing it to swell and burst in a spectacular display of destruction. As the chaos unfolds, Akiyuki is knocked off balance and begins to fall, only to be caught by Nakayami. Suddenly, the radar signals the arrival of 4 more enemy ships, so they quickly formulate a plan and split up to confront the new threat. Meanwhile, Raio, now transformed into a formidable Xam'd, takes to the skies on the male ship and delivers a powerful blow, slicing one of the monsters in half. Raio effortlessly deflects a laser shot from a monster and takes down another foe with a single blow. Meanwhile, a ship launches a strange object that collides with the male ship. The captain, alerted by the noise, arms herself and heads to investigate. Upon seeing the object transform into smaller creatures, she immediately secures the area and orders Kaiselji to lock down the hangar doors. Raio calls upon Akiyuki to assist him in battling the creatures lurking outside, while Nakayami rushes back to the engine room to provide backup. Akiyuki bravely reaches out to disable the control ring of the menacing monster, only to have the creature inflict severe damage on the ship's stabilizer. Kaiselji acts swiftly to deactivate the other stabilizer, but this decision results in a dangerous drop in the ship's altitude. The cabin door gets busted open, and the captain is the only one standing in the way. Just when things are looking grim, her gun decides to take a break. But don't worry, swoops in just in time and takes out all those creepy monsters. Unfortunately, one of them manages to get a shot off and hits in the shoulder with a laser. The captain, cool as a cucumber on the outside, is actually boiling with rage. She doesn't care if Nakayami can take apart the monster, she just shoots it down herself. Nakayami, though, is all about saving the monster's soul, listening to its heart and wanting to set it free. Afterward, the captain heads to the back of the hangar to deal with the guy controlling those creepy human form weapons. He wants to use them to boss the crew around and get his hands on 2 Xam'd. But surprise, surprise, his little scheme totally flops, and the captain just sends him packing. And to top it off, the male ship must make an emergency landing on some random island because it's all beat up. Nakayami's stuck on the ship, not sure if she should stay or go back home. Then a creepy black soul attacks her, but luckily Rappa shows up and saves the day. The liquid thing that was causing trouble disappears when it hears the commotion. Nakayami's a mess, tears streaming down her face and shaking like a leaf. She's unharmed but decides it's time to confront her past in her homeland. She says her goodbyes to the captain, but Akiyuki says that he wants to tag along for gaining experience and paying a visit to good old Sentin Island. On the other hand, Haru's got a new look with her short hair and she's grinding and training when the captain shows up. He drops the bomb that Teraoka's been a no-show at training for days and suggests Haru go check on him. Haru visits Teraoka's and learns that he's been taken over by Haruko after an unfortunate event. Teraoka never thought he'd end up transforming into the monster he hated the most. Akiyuki returns to Sentin Island after 6 months and rings Haru, but her younger sister picks up the phone. She then calls the military, so Haru and Akiyuki decide to meet at the dojo without knowing that the military is spying on them. Kekisu gets wind of it and springs into action. Akiyuki swings by his old man's clinic, and his dad clocks the bandage on his hand. Dad offers to patch him up and spills the beans about the Haruko. Soon, Akiyuki's face to face with the white-haired girl who blew up the bus. She's still breathing, all thanks to Akiyuki's old man's medical skills. But guess what? The military just crashed the party at the clinic, and Akiyuki's gotta make a run for it through the backwoods. Meanwhile, Haru's sis spills the beans to Teraoka, and they both haul ass to the dojo. Teraoka's anger is through the roof, and that Haruko thing inside him is going nuts. He's all caught up in Akiyuki's shadow and has turned into a Xam'd, losing himself in the process. Nakayami tries to snap Teraoka out of it, but he's too full of hate now and doesn't even look like a Xam'd anymore. Teraoka goes nuts and starts throwing punches at Nakayami, even threatening to take her out for good. Akiyuki steps in to stop the madness, but he's no match for Teraoka's rage. Haru jumps in to lend a hand but ends up getting caught. Teraoka's anger fuels the Haruko, twisting his body into a freaky mess. Teraoka dominates Akiyuki in a brawl and then pours his heart out to Haru, only to get rejected. Fuming, he tries to take a bite out of her, but then Akiyuki transforms into a full-blown Xam'd and frees himself from his grip. Nakayami intervenes to calm Akiyuki down, and shockingly, Teruoka doesn't turn to stone despite his seething rage. Nakayami uses this chance to their advantage and changes him back into a human. Suddenly, a flying ship shows up, and the ASP squad starts to roll out. Akiyuki shoves Nakayami aside and gets hit with a barrage of attacks. After the dust settles, Akiyuki is down on the ground, not moving while Teruoka and Haru are handcuffed and taken away. Kekisu goes up to Akiyuki, who's lying on the ground, and drops his guard. Nakayami, peeking from behind a rock, is all confused. Akiyuki sends a mind message to Nakayami, telling her to make a run for it and meet at Xanbani. Nakayami bolts, catching everyone's eye, so Akiyuki seizes the opportunity to take down Kekisu. Once Nakayami is out of sight, Akiyuki bolts with Kekisu in tow. The word spreads like wildfire to the secretary, who wastes no time in sending soldiers on red alert and splitting up the paths for Teruoka and Haru. Akiyuki doesn't lay a finger on Kekisu, but he leaves him stranded on a tall tower. Kekisu tries to sweet-talk Akiyuki, pretending to be all buddy-buddy, but the moment Akiyuki turns his back, Kekisu whips out a gun and starts blasting away. They're boxed in and then boom, the ASP squad shows up. Akiyuki's too wiped to fight back, so the soldiers shoot him into the river. On the other hand, Teruoka's ride loses connection, and he hits a store to grab some soda, reminiscing about the good times with Akiyuki and Haru. Teruoka can't handle the guilt anymore and takes his own life. In the middle of the night, a man stumbles upon Akiyuki lying on the shore, but instead of being a good guy, he decides to be a total jerk and chains Akiyuki up to sell him off to the north. When Akiyuki wakes up, he's still wearing the mask and has no memory of who he is. Just then, a black creature known as Cage Daoji materializes in front of him and asks him to introduce himself, but Akiyuki doesn't respond. In the meantime, Nakayami's airship hits empty and has to make an unscheduled landing in a village. She discovers that the fuel truck only shows up once every 10 days. With no other options, she starts pushing her cart towards a small town, fretting about Akiyuki's well-being. On the journey, a Tessic youngster catches Nakayami's eye. This kid is just strolling by a fruit stand, snags an apple, and when the owner calls him out, he goes full-on wild and throws a rock at the poor guy. Of course, the owner ain't having any of that and gives chase. But then, Nakayami steps in, sees the whole thing go down, and follows them. She finds the fruit stand guy on the ground, and surprise, the kid is actually a Xam'd, doing his own thing. Nakayami schools the kid named Yango on the dangers of being a Xam'd, patches him up, and warns him not to go all crazy with his powers or he'll end up as a statue. The little dude's scared stiff about getting turned into a statue and can't get any shut-eye. The next day, the fruit stand dude shows up again, and the kid's struggling to keep his Xam'd powers in check, fighting to control the Haruko inside him. But just in the nick of time, Nakayami shows up and strikes a deal with the man, trading her airship for the boy's safety. Nakayami didn't want the hassle of taking care of the kid, so she tried to give him some cash to go away. But the little guy was too proud to accept it and insisted on tagging along with her to the Tessic village. Nakayami was hesitant at first, but since she had no idea where she was going, she reluctantly let the kid lead the way. Turns out, he is actually pretty good at navigating, so she ends up bringing him along after all. On the contrary, Haru's boss throws her in a room to ponder her mistakes, but it's really just a fancy jail cell. She didn't follow orders, so he's done with her. Now he's all about her sister, Midori. Midori's got a bum leg from an accident, but that just makes her a pro at controlling lifeless bodies. This ability proves to be so unique that Dr. Kanba starts crying by witnessing her power. Meanwhile, the soldiers up front are out to nab Jibashiri for their Haruko. Northerners think these Jibashiri are like gods, but the Southerners just want to climb the ranks and dream of promotions. Two Jibashiri are out there on the battlefield, collecting Haruko from souls. One falls to a soldier's bullet, and the other gets hauled off to headquarters. Afterward, Kekisu tries to get the scoop on why they're growing Xam'd all over the place, but this kid is tight-lipped. Then, in the middle of the night, a white-haired girl and boy in the hospital snap awake. The boy whips out a black stone from his shoe, draws circles on the ground, and starts chanting some crazy incantation. Suddenly, green light starts emitting out of the ground and the boy's soul teleports to Haru's cell. He's banking on Haru to lead Akiyuki to the magical land of Condorl, where Haruko makes an appearance. He wants to clue her in on her sister's situation, but he disappears before Haru can get the lowdown. Meanwhile, up north in a courtyard, a grandma guided by Cage Daoji shows up where Akiyuki is being held. Cage Daoji casually walks up to Akiyuki and gives a hint, silently asking the grandma to buy him. Afterward, Akiyuki is taken to a rehab center up north, which is a hub for all kinds of people, so Akiyuki's unique look doesn't even cause a stir. There, grandma sets him up with a job as a mail carrier. On the other hand, Haru calls for Kekisu but doesn't say a word. Just as Kekisu is heading out, Haru grabs his hand and puts it in the rightest place while begging him not to hurt her sister. The secretary is totally shaken by this, and later, when she brings Haru her dinner, she's fuming with jealousy. On her way out, she casually drops that she lost her keys and left the door wide open, not giving a damn about what might happen. Somewhere in the icy lands, Nakayami meets Ongoro, a cozy creature that's a pro at showing directions. He follows Ongoro to a secret cave, where the creature morphs into a stone wall. No need to worry, though, Ongoro is a friendly guide. Together, Nakayami and Yongo explore the cave and discover a hidden paradise. As they sail on, they're surrounded by stone Ongoro statues that keep the area feeling like a perpetual spring. Nakayami and Yongo end up in Tessic Village, where her sis Kyujirika is the big boss. Turns out, Nakayami's job is to talk some sense into her sis and stop her from doing something crazy to get back the sacred land, but Kyujirika knows what Nakayami's up to and takes her straight to the top of the mountain to show off her cool accomplishments. Kyujirika has cooked up some crazy energy balls by mixing Ongoro with fresh blood. Now you can boss around Xam'd just by thinking about it. Nakayami is trying to talk some sense into her sister, who's gone all hardcore and is ready to die for her cause. The gang throws a big party to welcome Nakayami back as a celestial maiden. Kyujirika is banking on Nakayami's backing, but Nakayami has a bold proposal. She suggests taking back the Holy Land by embarking on a Ruikanism pilgrimage and spreading the Xam'd globally with the support of the Senova leader. However, Kyujirika is hesitant, questioning the stability of Senova and unwilling to hand over such a critical task. Kyujirika gets super mad at Nakayami and starts choking her with her Xam'd powers. Yongo steps in and threatens Kyujirika to calm down, but she's still dead set on taking back the Holy Land. Nakayami gives up trying to talk sense into her and decides to head to Condorl to find Senova and do her celestial maiden thing. After breaking free from her cell, Haru makes a beeline for Akiyuki's old man's clinic. She stumbles upon Nazuna, out cold but still gabbing like a pro. With Nazuna's help, Haru pinpoints Akiyuki's location and gears up for action. Ryuzu pulls strings with his military pal to map out an escape route from Sentin Island. He also passes on a vial of his own vaccine to Haru, just in case she needs it to fend off Haruko. Haru then reunites with her sister, who's decided to become a test subject in the hopes of walking again. Despite Haru's pleas, her sister is determined to take the chance. Haru decides to go on a solo mission to track down Akiyuki. She heads to a port and decides to buy an airship. The owner gives her a heads up about some human form weapons hangout on the way to the northern ranch, but he says that everything will be fine if Haru makes sure that her airship is speedy. Haru's gearing up for a wild ride into enemy turf, but hold up, that sneaky seller duped her with a lemon of an airship. Just as she's about to blast off, the engine sputters and dies, sending her careening into a pack of snoozing monsters. Thank goodness they're out cold from the chill. Haru's frantically trying to revive the airship, but it's playing hard to get, and the monsters are starting to stir. In the end, it takes a special method to get it started again. On the contrary, Cage Daoji's vibes start to jog Akiyuki's memory, making him remember the people around him, but he draws a blank when it comes to his own name. Cage Daoji then guides Akiyuki to the top of a tall tower, and just as he's about to take a tumble, Haru swoops in to save the day. Her voice triggers something in Akiyuki, and he is finally able to remember his name. However, the airship's engine dies thanks to a pleasant aroma, and Akiyuki swoops in to rescue Haru as they free fall. Surprisingly, Akiyuki grows wings on his back, marking him as a legit Xam'd in tune with Haruko. Cage Daoji catches the whole show. It's been scouring the globe for a Xam'd tough enough to face off against. Cage Daoji finally found a Xam'd that he was into, so he dipped through a crack and bounced back to the Diamond Tower. Now he's just kicking it, waiting for the epic pilgrimage, and it turns out that Cage Daoji is actually the Harukan Emperor. Contrarily, the Southern Army just rolls up on the village, trying to snatch up some airship energy. Kyujirika tells everyone to bounce to the mountaintop for safety. Those jerks didn't even give the village a chance to surrender before dropping bombs and sending in their ASP squad. They're straight up wrecking houses while the villagers are stuck up watching their homes getting destroyed. Kyujirika chugs down another energy ball, writhing in agony as weird bumps sprout on her back. The Mech squad is about to storm the temple, with only one defender left, but he fails too because regular weapons are useless against the Mechs. Just then, a mysterious figure steps out of the smoke, and the Mechs go boom in a flash. The mysterious figures turn out to be Kyujirika, who unclips her belt, flaunting her 3 Haruko marks on chest. She then tosses her coat aside, unveiling a set of wings on her back. The Mech squad tries to take her down, but she's too slick, dodging their shots effortlessly. With a sly grin, she starts blasting lasers like a boss, leaving the Mech squad in awe of her power. Meanwhile, Nazuna, confined to a hospital bed, conveys an urgent message to Ryuzu about Midori's dire circumstances. Meanwhile, the imprisoned white-haired boy pleads with Ryuzu to save Midori from impending danger. On the other hand, Kakisu pressures Dr. Kamba to expedite an experiment within a strict 10-day deadline in order to secure Midori's presence at the Grand Pilgrimage. Kakisu pushes Dr. Kamba to seek advice from Jibashiri, but Jibashiri sees right through the doctor's act and tells him to cut the crap and be real. Dr. Kamba spills the beans about his selfish motives and asks for a chance to make things right. Dr. Kamba successfully convinces the boy to help him and gets ready for his mission to make things right. He's banking on transforming Midori into a top-notch Xam'd to present to Sinova and make up for his past mistakes. But he soon realizes that 10 days are not enough time to get the job done. Kakisu can see right through the doctor's messed up head, but he's still holding out hope for some redemption. He's also planning to let the white-haired kid go. Kakisu decides to pay a visit to the dungeon to figure out how the doctor is being controlled by some powerful magic. The kid in there surprises Kakisu by revealing some deep truths about his past, showing that Kakisu is just a guy trying to do whatever it takes to end the war as soon as possible. Kakisu then tries to shut the white-haired boy's mouth, but the boy's telepathic communication persists, allowing him to convey his thoughts without speaking. In the meantime, as Ryuzu gets wind of the shady experiment on Midori, he reaches out to his buddy and Midori's father, Nishimura, for the lowdown. Nishimura spills the beans on the secret underground lab and hooks them up with fake doctor passes and real guns for protection. However, he tells them to keep the heat holstered unless it is do or die. They manage to sneak into the military base without a hitch. The buddy pulls out his gun and pretends to be in charge, making 2 soldiers seal off the base. Meanwhile, Ryuzu studies a map, catching the eye of some nearby soldiers. Ryuzu straight up admits they're lost and looking for the secret medical room. A cool soldier points them to the elevator. Inside, they decide to split up. Ryuzu heads off to save Jibashiri. Nishimura hits the 25th floor and runs into 2 guards. Keeping his cool, he's asked for his doctor's pass. As he fumbles through his bag, a bottle of booze tumbles out, totally blowing his cover. With lightning speed, Nishimura knocks out 1 guard and subdues the other before entering the deserted lab, feeling a wave of despair wash over him. Meanwhile, Ryuzu kicks open a door to discover the white-haired boy lying in a pool of blood. Filled with rage and a burning desire for vengeance against Kakisu, Ryuzu is surprised to find only the secretary waiting for him. The secretary updates him that Kakisu has everything planned out and is currently waiting at the hero's memorial. Midori has been moved to a battleship, where the doctor will carry out the final stage of the experiment during the journey to Condorl. At the monument, Kakisu's heart races with anticipation as he is waiting for Ryuzu to arrive. Their connection went back to a fateful encounter over a decade ago when Ryuzu's, who was a northern doctor, saved Kakisu's life, who was a southern soldier. The events of that day led to this moment where, despite Ryuzu's heartfelt appeals, Kakisu remains unmoved as Midori's ship sails away with the battleship. Ryuzu aims his gun at Kakisu, but his soft heart stops him from pulling the trigger. Fate works in mysterious ways. 16 years back, Ryuzu rescued Kakisu, and now Kakisu's mom saves Akiyuki. Haru and Akiyuki say goodbye to the old lady, who warns them not to linger. She bids them farewell without a word, as they board an airship headed for Condorl that night. Elsewhere, Raio is informed by the Revolutionary Army about a mission to take down the rebirth site of the Harukan Emperor, Diamond Tower, and sets off with Captain Issue to the north. At the same time, Nakayami seizes an opportunity to travel to Condorl with the help of Yongo, who assists a crew member of Zagendo. With the Revolutionary Army struggling to capture Diamond Tower, Raio devises a clever strategy. He suggests using the human form weapons' weaknesses to their advantage by luring them to the sides and turning them to stone, while a select team infiltrates the bunker's blind spots to breach the main gate. Akiyuki is totally clueless about why he's in Condorl, but then this mysterious guy in a robe shows up and offers to become their guide. Akiyuki realizes he's heard this guy's voice in his dreams before, where he's always there, waiting for him. They go underground and discover a bunch of pilgrims gearing up for a huge pilgrimage. The dude spills the beans that the Hurricane Emperor is on his way to have a showdown with Xam'd. And guess what? The poor pilgrims are gonna be sacrificed to purify the Emperor's messed up soul. Sacrifice equals death. Akiyuki is freaking out watching all these pilgrims. He just can't wrap his head around it. But the man is all smiles, saying the pilgrims are cool with it because they think sacrificing their bodies will save their souls. In the end, they get kicked out because they have completely different beliefs. On the other hand, Ishu's gang makes it to Diamond Tower, only to be greeted by a massive human form weapon blocking their path. But fear not, Raio shows up just in time to slice the beast in half. When the creature tries to pull a sneaky move, Raio takes it out, and as he powers down his Xam'd form, another monster decides to blow itself up. Just then, Ishu shows up at the front lines and totally owns the battle with just one shot. Down south, the military's warships are hovering over Condoril, ready to drop their mecha squads. Dr. Kanba is in one of the big black warships, totally obsessed with his so-called perfect creation, while Midori is basically a lost cause at this point. Back at Zagendo's mail ship, Nakayami unveils the true motive behind her journey, stating that there are some things that only she can do. Nakayami spills the beans that she's supposed to be the big shot summoner for Tessic Village, helping out with the grand pilgrimage in Senova. But after seeing the ugly side of war while picking up Haruko's scraps post-battle, and feeling sorry for a lonely girl, she ditches Senova and starts hitting the road with the little girl until she bumps into Captain Ishu. Elsewhere, the kid up front becomes one with a gun turret, controlling it like a boss. When he wakes up, a huge turret pops out of the ground. His city got attacked by a bunch of mechs going after innocent folks, turning the place into a war zone. Luckily, there's a badass weapon hidden under the town. A gang of kids link up with it, becoming one with the weapon. When the laser zaps by, warships and mechs are turned into ashes, totally changing the battle scene. In the meantime, over at Diamond Tower, Ishu is leading the rebel crew to bust through the gates. While the others are keeping watch outside, Ishu and Raio are storming in to take out the Emperor. But unexpectedly, Raio gets shot down by soldiers above. Ishu flips out when suddenly a bomb is thrown at them out of nowhere. Raio takes the hit, holding up the collapsing roof with his final breath. He tells Ishu to leave him behind and take down the Hurricane Emperor. And as if that's not enough, the enemies are on their tail. Raio passes his explosives to Ishu, and she's torn but charges forward, determined to finish what she started with her gang. Ishu shows those guards who's boss, setting off explosives around the Emperor's container. The revolutionaries go nuts when they hear the explosion, knowing it means Ishu has taken out the Emperor. But just then, a soldier spots a mysterious creature that turns out to be the real Hurricane Emperor. The Hurricane Emperor finally wakes up after a 1,000-year nap, and guess what? He's not in a good mood. He starts shooting lasers out of his mouth that can obliterate a whole mountain. All of a sudden, a beam of light shoots out from the laser, creating dark rings that spread and cover everything in darkness. The Hurricane Emperor looks like he's getting power up from the darkness, standing up and getting ready for his next evolution. The revolutionary army tries to shoot him with their cannons, but it's like he's indestructible. After this, the Emperor zooms over to Condoril like a boss. On the other hand, just as Akiyuki and Haru leave the troubled area behind, Haru is startled by the sound of Midori's voice echoing through the chaos. Ignoring Akiyuki's warnings, Haru makes the decision to return to the ground in search of her missing sister. Upon their arrival, a gigantic egg materializes before them, its surface covered in numerous eyes that glow with an otherworldly light. Haru feels a strange connection to the egg, as if her sister's essence is somehow contained within it. But as the egg erupts in a burst of energy, revealing a monstrous entity within, Haru is left in shock at the sight of her sister transformed into a horrifying creature. Haru starts bawling her eyes out, pleading with Midori to show herself. But that crazy monster goes berserk and gulps Haru down in one go. Meanwhile, Akiyuki is frozen in shock, seeing Haru get devoured by her own sis. The Haruko inside him takes advantage of the chaos, taking over and turning him into a stone bit by bit. Luckily, Nakayami shows up just in time to save Midori from herself. She knows the only way to wake her up is to dive into her inner world. So, she bravely lets the monster gobble her up. The next thing you know, we're in Midori's mind. She's been keeping her heart locked up tight ever since her mom died in a crash that caused her to lose her leg as well. This tragedy has left her stuck in a dark place she can't break free from. Nakayami intervenes in Midori's inner world to aid her in breaking through emotional barriers. By giving Midori the Haruko extracted from their mother, Nakayami facilitates a transformative experience for Midori. transported back to the day of the accident. Midori is able to communicate her deepest emotions to her mother and feel a profound sense of connection and love. Akiyuki contemplates the trials and tribulations he has endured, recognizing the transformative nature of his experiences. Initially overwhelmed by the presence of the Haruko, he has since forged a deep connection with it, learning to harness its power for good. Utilizing his father's groundbreaking remedy, he undergoes a remarkable metamorphosis into Xam'd, ready to confront the malevolent entity. Showing incredible courage, he charges towards the monster and swiftly injects the antidote, resulting in the monster's immediate disintegration. Nakayami is beaming with pride as Akiyuki nails the merge with the Haruko, but she's quick to remind everyone that the mission is not over yet. She tells Haru to grab her sister and get out of there, just as two Jibashiri show up on the scene. They check out Akiyuki and the Xam'd, thrilled that their efforts are not wasted. The Jibashiri lets Nakayami know that the High Priest is here and waiting for her. They guide her to a rundown house where Senova is chilling. Lightning and thunder put on a show over Condorl to announce the Emperor's arrival. Akiyuki takes flight with his blue wings, soaring into the sky to do his thing. Akiyuki is astonished by the immense size of the Harukan Emperor. In a desperate attempt to save the people of Condorl, Akiyuki implores the Emperor for clemency. However, the Emperor finds Akiyuki's request ludicrous, asserting that the people of Condorl have willingly given themselves over to dark powers in a bid to cleanse their souls. So, the Emperor comes clean and confesses he's the one who bailed out Akiyuki earlier. He even drops his real name, Kage Daoji, and gets all teary-eyed, asking Akiyuki to spill the beans about his true self. And then, out of nowhere, black rain starts pouring down, turning anyone it touches into stone. Seeing the Emperor's arrival, Kyujirika transforms into Xam'd and zooms towards the battlefield. Meanwhile, Senova casually taps her umbrella, causing a change in the surroundings. It's later uncovered that she was the midwife for the Emperor's heir, who tragically dies soon after being born. The monks at Diamond Tower kick out both tribes and shoot up the dead emperor with Haruko, turning him into a hot mess. Senova plans to use the big pilgrimage shindig to purify the emperor and get rid of all that negativity. She transforms into Haruko and passes the baton to Nakayami, telling her to finish the job. In the meantime, Kyujirika charges into battle, determined to face off against the Harukan Emperor. Akiyuki warns her that it's a lost cause, but Kyujirika's not one to back down. She launches her attack, but it's like hitting a brick wall. The Emperor's power is just too much. He doesn't even bat an eye at her anger-fueled assault, and Kyujirika is left feeling defeated and powerless. Witnessing this, Akiyuki rushes towards Kyujirika to save her. In the meantime, Senova's airship shows up over Condorl, and everyone's all hyped for her to arrive. But guess what? Nakayami pops out instead, totally catching everyone off guard. Nakayami's gonna do the last ritual with Senova's Haruko and shut down Condorl, which has been open for like 1,000 years. She's gonna sacrifice herself to seal Condorl and save the rest of the crew. Turns out, Emperor can handle anything with a flick of his finger, even against Kyujirika's powerful Xam'd form. But Akiyuki can hold his own against him. It's because the Emperor once turned into Kage Daoji and stood by Akiyuki's side, watching him go from lost to found. Plus, Akiyuki is the only Xam'd flawlessly fused with Haruko, so the Emperor thinks he can save his soul too. Akiyuki steps into the Emperor's spiritual realm, only to find it completely empty. The Emperor's life was messed up from the start, filled with darkness. Akiyuki decides to give the Emperor his own name. When they shake hands, the Emperor's mask vanishes, and the world bursts into color. However, Akiyuki gets totally lost in this black and white world. His mind goes back to Sentin Island, a place he knows well, but he's feeling all out of sorts. He's feeling lonely and uneasy. And just then, Nakayami shows up in Akiyuki's headspace. She reassures him that one day, someone will call out his name and bring him back. Meanwhile, Nakayami makes her way to the center of the fetal nest. With Senova's Haruko by her side, they activate Condorl, beaming light into the sky that strikes the Emperor's body. Once the light fades, the world is back to its old self, and the petrified folks are back among the living. But Nakayami gets the short end of the stick. She's stuck in Condorl for 1,000 years. Yango sees what's happening and tries to stop Condorl from closing for good. He turns his arm into Xam'd, but it's not enough. Akiyuki swoops in, but he's lost his memory again. He notices Yango's face and tries to help, but the gate still shuts. Without realizing it, Akiyuki is transformed into Xam'd and eventually becomes a stone statue. After some time, the Xanbani is restarted and finds the petrified Akiyuki. Ishu then commands for Akiyuki to be transported back to his homeland. It has been nearly a decade since the Civil War came to an end. The world has since healed from the wounds of battle, and the school that was once a casualty of the conflict has been resurrected. Haru now stands as a beacon of knowledge within its halls, sharing the stories of the past with a new generation. The girl with the striking white hair, once a figure of intrigue, now finds refuge in the compassionate care of Ryuzu at his clinic. Midori has come a long way and now embraces her disability without any insecurities. Haru frequently visits the hillside, finding solace in the presence of the large rock, dreaming of the day he can go back home. Meanwhile, life on the Xanbani carries on as everyone works towards a brighter tomorrow, eagerly anticipating Nakayami's eventual return. That's it for today, my fellow men of culture. Like and subscribe to the channel for more plot-filled recaps.